And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today, we're looking at the possibilities of the Washington Commanders going out and signing Chris Godwin. We're also going to be looking at some other potential wide receivers that the Washington Commanders might go after in free agency. And so let's start with this article that you can find on sportsillustrated.com under Commanders Urge to Sign Super Bowl champion wide receiver in free agency, talking about Chris Godwin. And so this comes off of an ESPN report. It's actually an ESPN Plus article, and it is Aaron Schatz who writes this, and he is talking about essentially what each team might be doing in free agency. And Chris Godwin is linked to the Washington Commanders, and we're going to be talking about why this could be a great fit. But keep this in mind that the franchise tag deadline is going to be March 4th, and then free agency starts March 10th. And so assuming that Chris Godwin is not going to be franchise tagged, I absolutely think the Washington Commanders should go after him. And I do think that when you get Chris Godwin paired with Terry McLaurin, that is going to be a dynamic duo. You add the fact that you have just traded for Deebo Samuel, a trade that becomes official on March 12th. Like, I think that this wide receiving room becomes very dynamic. You already have a young wide receiver in Luke McCaffrey, who I think has got some room to grow this year, especially depending on what the Washington Commanders are going to do in free agency. Do they bring back a De'Ami Brown? Who knows what they're going to do there. But certainly I think that it would be huge if they do go out and they were to pick up Chris Godwin, because look, Chris Godwin, he's going to be 25, I believe, at the start of the 2025 season. And here's a player that, look, he was entering the season coming off 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. I think he was well on his way to get there for this season until he got hurt. And I just think that when you look at, just his production, look, he's averaged at least 4 touchdowns per season. I think he was on pace to have even more than that in this season. And then when you look at the fact that he is super reliable for the most part, he's a player that can work out of the slot. He's a player that can definitely still take the lid off the top of the defense and go long. He's also a player that's still getting some great separation underneath as well and being able to win. Like, I think that there's so many things that you can do with Chris Godwin, and you can imagine just how much, they're going to put pressure on a defense if you have Terry McLaurin operating on one side, you have Chris Godwin on the other, you have Deebo Samuel working the middle of the field. I mean, it just becomes a matchup nightmare for a team. And then when you look at just what Deebo Samuel is going to do alone in this offense, with his ability to get yards after the catch, after the screen pass, or if it comes down to a check down situation, Deebo Samuel is going to be terrific there. I've talked about him being great and shorthanded on those gotta have it downs. I'm not sure he necessarily gets the separation like a Chris Godwin or Terry McLaurin, but he's still going to definitely make some plays in the receiving game. And you can also put him in the wide receiver options, wide receiver end rounds. You can maybe put him out there at the running back position if you need to get a tough yard. Not saying that the Washington Commanders rely on that, but just saying, look, man, there's so many different things that you can do with your offense when you add a guy like Chris Godwin. And when you look at the cost, I think that that's where it's going to become interesting because, according to, some sources here, just kind of looking at maybe the prediction on his salary, they're saying like, look, maybe you're looking at a $20 to $25 million deal. And so does that make sense for the Washington Commanders if you pay him 20 million times 4, that's $80 million right there. Is that something that the Washington Commanders do? I get that they have the cap space to go out and get him. I definitely think that he's a game changer. I do think that Adam Peters wants to be aggressive. At 29, I think that you still have a window there, and you just have to be conscious of the fact that, look, with Jaden Daniels and being on this rookie scale contract, it's got to be something that doesn't put this franchise into just a tough situation as they need to add some other pieces. But I would love for the Washington Commanders to go get him. I think he would be free agent number 1, in my opinion. And if they were not to get him, then I think that there's just maybe a couple other free agents that I would consider. And I've talked about this before. I do like a player like Keenan Allen. I think that he's the another player that I would take. I know he's a little older here in season 12. I know he doesn't necessarily get as much separation, but look, he still is terrific at being sure-handed. He maybe doesn't stretch the field as much, but I think that he does enough that he would take some attention off of Terry McLaurin at this point in time. I think he would be an excellent wide receiver too for you. And then I think another player that maybe the Washington Commanders could get would be Amari Cooper. I think that, he's 30, he's in year 10, and I know he's coming off a down year with the Buffalo Bills. He's been in the NFC East before with the Dallas Cowboys. I think that, look, you get him into this offense. Look, he doesn't have a ton of pressure on him. I think he can go out there and make some plays for you. You add that with the Deebo Samuel standpoint, and I still think you have something there. And so those are just a couple options I think the Washington Commanders just could go with just outright in free agency. Another player to really monitor is going to be what happens with Cooper Kupp. I think that there's the potential with him that I think that he might get cut because I don't see the Washington Commanders really being an option as far as trading for him. I know that they were linked to him initially, but with the amount of salary that is left on his deal at I think about $29 million said here, 2025, and then it says 2026, he's got a $27 million cap hit there. And so I don't know if the Washington Commanders would want to invest the money into that. And now that they've traded on for Deebo Samuel, I wonder if there's going to be interest around the league and he might just get outright cut. And if he does, do you bring him on a prove-it deal? I think that that's something maybe the Washington Commanders could explore. If it's more of a prove-it deal, you're not necessarily invested so much there financially. Maybe it's something where it's an incentive-based contract where he's got to stay on the field some more. I think maybe I would like that deal there. But those are just a couple of options that I think that the Washington Commanders could take via free agency and kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with other teams, maybe cutting loose of some players. And look, don't rule out the fact that the Washington Commanders maybe they take a chance in the draft and get a wide receiver too. Even though they have Luke McCaffrey, do they maybe go out and get a receiver in the draft? I think that is something that is a possibility as well. It wouldn't be shocking to see the Washington Commanders maybe get a wide receiver here in maybe round 3, round 4, depending on how aggressive they're going to be. It could be earlier, but I could see them doing that. But also, too, it is going to be something where you have to find out just how much do they really believe, with Luke McCaffrey moving forward, and then who else would they bring back? Because I think that maybe that changes a little bit of your plan, too. If you're bringing back a De'Ami Brown, I think he's still young enough. I think he can definitely contribute as well. Maybe that's a wide receiver along with Luke McCaffrey that they want to go ahead and move forward with in the future. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you're thinking here. Do you think that if Chris Godwin becomes available, if he is not franchise tagged, do you see the Washington Commanders going out, making the play and signing him? Would he be worth $20 to $25 million for anywhere from 2 to 4 years? Would you go out and sign him based off his productivity? Love to hear what you're thinking here. And as we always say, go Commanders, and I will see you on the next one. All right, peace.